Good morning. Today is Wednesday, July the 8th, 2020. Notice has been given of a regular meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County, Texas. We are at 114 West Buffington Avenue in Anderson, Texas, at which time the following subjects will be discussed. The meeting has been called to order. I would ask those that are present here to please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge of the U.S. and the Texas flags. Would you pray with me, please? Father, we're grateful for this opportunity to be here this day, to provide service to the county in which we live. Father, we are grateful for the citizens in this county, the peace that we enjoy with one another. We ask, Father, that during these trying times, that we are patient with one another, that we're observant with one another and of one another, and Father, we take the care and respect of each other to heart. Father, we're grateful for the rain that we had yesterday. The ground was ready. We needed it, and you know what we need better than we do. But we ask for your continued love, your forgiveness, and we ask all of these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Would you be seated, please? Is the county clerk out there? Do you have any submission forms?
I have one, yes, sir.
I'll take it. The court calls Mr. Bogus, Mr. Charles Bogus, for consent. I'm sorry, for public comments.
Yes.
Mr. Bogus, if you would approach the podium there, okay. And I'm going to ask you to speak up, and if you don't mind, could you unleash your mask so that your voice is not muted? Perfect.
Okay. We got a road engineer that doesn't know how to grade a road, how to clean the culverts out that's underneath of it, but he likes to put asphalt roads on county roads. It will stop immediately. And if y'all think I'm joking, do it. Don't do it pay. Because I'll turn it into the state. I've got enough garbage on this county to put a bunch of people out of work. They broke my culvert. They tore the one up that's coming down the street, and the water runs across the street and tears the road up. They don't want to do nothing. He won't call me back. He is an idiot. He needs to be
Sir, I'll ask you to do no name calling in here. We're glad to hear your comments, but no name calling.
And if you don't do it, that's the end of it. I will turn it into the state and the federal government of what this county is doing. And make it will stand. Because I have got enough evidence of what's going on. But the county engineer won't call me back when I went down there and left what he did to my driveway. He won't even call me back. I don't go for that. And that's why I'm here. I'm mad. You can take it for any way you want to call it. But I will get something done. And it will be done permanently once it's done. Because I have got a few people fired, one from the federal government and one from the state. I got fired for stuff. So I do have the information, and this is what's going to happen. They can't even grade my damn road right. Tore up my driveway. It was asphalt, the driveway. Tore it up. He's going to fix it. Or I'm going to turn this stuff into the state, and y'all going to know about it, because you're all going to be in trouble. Every one of you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
It ain't a comment, it's a fact.
Did you have any other submissions?
No, sir, that was all.
But I understand you'd like to make a comment as
Yes,
an
sir,
elected
if I may.
official, please.
Good morning, court. I'm Vanessa Brzezinski, County Clerk. I'd like to announce to the public that our property fraud alert program has been activated as of yesterday. It is on our website, on our public search page. I have posted instructions on Facebook and my website on how to access it, how to use it, and I hope that the citizens will find it beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any public comments that you'd like to make?
I do have one.
Before you do, I'm going to ask you, our soft-spoken commissioner, if you would, because we do have the flashcards up here, that you would speak a little louder than you normally do.
Saturday morning at St. Mary's Catholic Church, we're having a preschool children's rummage sale. If you need children's clothing or probably some adult clothing also, we have so much clothing that was collected this year that we're going to have an early rummage sale to help people buy clothing to go back to school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you say the times on that?
8 to 2 o'clock.
8 to 2, thank you. Any other commissioner have a comment they'd like to make? I'm going to take the liberty of having two comments. One's more of an announcement. I have received a letter from the Texas Workforce Commission. We had submitted a Mr. Nestor L. Lehman as a proposed member to the board. They have accepted his membership on that board, and he will serve as appropriate. And that was submitted to my office by Brian Daniel, who's chairman of the Texas Workforce Commission of that category. All right. The second thing I have is, and for those that are listening in, this is the executive order from Governor Abbott, and it's the GA 29, the revision from GA 28. And I know there's been a lot of conversation since the governor put this out, because it is the order particularly focusing on the use of face mask coverings during the COVID-19 disaster. One thing I do want to make known, because we do have early voting going on in the county at the current time. One location is at the courthouse in Anderson. The second location is at the community center in Navasota, Texas. And I've been asked a question more than once about, do I have to wear a mask when I go to vote? The answer, and these are excluded, and it's number 8. It says, any person who is voting, assisting a voter, serving as a poll watcher, or actively administrating an election, but wearing a face mask covering is strongly encouraged. It is not required, but it is encouraged. So those of you that are adamant about not wearing a face mask, and you're saying, well, I'm not going to vote if I have to wear one, you don't have to wear one to vote. My final comment on the face mask business is, this is the order from the governor. All I can tell you is that I believe in his opinion, he's trying to do what's best for our state and our citizens and the economy of our state. One thing we don't want to have is a total shutdown again and our economy hit the drain one more time. But the request is that if you're going to be around others that you're not with all the time, it's not a bad suggestion to wear a mask. And some people have said, I'm not wearing a mask under any circumstance. And I appreciate you expressing your rights and your authority, but I ask that you keep other people in mind when you make your decision about yourself. Are there any other public comments? Final call? Just one other comment for commissioners. We now have our splash guards on the well, as you can see in front of us. So I will ask you to speak up. I don't think the overhead, when you look at the recordings on the internet, it's not going to be inhibited in any way. But for our Facebook Live, there is going to be a deflection of sound. So speak up like you're mad at your dog or your 2-year-old, okay? All right. With that, we're going to then go into consent agenda items. Items identified within the consent agenda item are routine in nature and will be passed with one vote without being discussed separately. If a member of the court requests that a particular item be discussed prior to the meeting, the agenda will be pulled from the consent agenda and discussed and as part of the regular agenda at the appropriate time. That has not been done. One vote will approve the remaining items on the consent agenda. Agenda item number 3, consider and take action to approve the treasurer's list of claims and bills. Agenda item number 4, consider and take action to approve payroll. Any commissioner have any comment on either of those 2 items? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion. Is there one?
I so move that we approve the consent as items, I can't talk this morning. Agenda item 3 and 4.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on the consent agenda items number 3 and 4 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll take the liberty, I've had a request to bring our emergency management coordinator, services coordinator forward on the schedule, and I will accommodate that. Mr. Lilly, if you would come to the podium. Commissioners, if you would turn to agenda items number 10, 11, and 12. Number 10, consider and take action to review and approve payment for the validated tier level for Plantersville Volunteer Fire Department. Mr. Lilly, I understand you did have a meeting with Plantersville Chief last night.
Yes, sir.
And you're here ready to prepare or present what you've learned.
Yes, I met with his training manager and with the chief last night at Plantersville, and we were able to complete validation of what training they already have up to Tier 1, with the exception of they currently have 6 full-fledged firefighters on their roster. And of those 6, at least 4 of them, because of the way the contract's written, at least 50% or more for yellow items, has to be able to meet that requirement. And in this case, for Tier 1, that's CPR. They have 1 that is verified with CPR, so the other 3, they're not at that yet, but the chief has a CPR class schedule, and he's working hard to complete that part of it. So everything else for Tier 1 is complete.
Your opening statement says 50% or more. If they have 6, would 3 not qualify them for that? Or
You're
does
right.
it need to be 4?
You're right, yeah, it's 50%. It used to be over 50%, yes, you're correct.
50% or more,
So
okay.
so they need 2 more to meet that criteria as a minimum.
Okay, and they have that training scheduled?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And should be completed by when?
I would say within the next week or 2. From what he told me, they've got it set up. You know, a lot depends on how many can come to the training and how many are willing to come because of COVID and all that, but
Gotcha.
he said that his goal was to have it done before the end of the month.
Well, certainly no mouth-to-mouth in the CPR training, right?
No, actually,
I
that's.
think they've been eliminated.
Yeah, they don't, that's not a part of CPR anymore.
Okay. Okay, what action would you like us to take at this time?
Well, I leave it at the court's discretion on which way to go on this, but in light of the fact that they have met the criteria for all the other levels back to October, the certifications that they had are dated at least prior to October 2019, and they also met your criteria, Judge, where they're not prior to I think you said October of 2017 was the date that you set for me, that anything prior to that would not be considered.
No, it was October of 19.
Anything prior to October 2019?
Right.
Okay.
Unless you had certification from outside agencies.
No, these were all outside,
Yeah.
yes, they're either with TEEX or with
Oh, okay.
SFFMA or with Texas, I can't remember what the.
If you had outside
Yes,
certifications
sir.
and you could, whatever
And
amount.
I have copies of
Okay.
those, yes, sir.
All right.
So like I said, with that in mind, again, the fact that they are working hard to comply with that last item for level 1, it's up to the court, but I would recommend that we consider, just like we have with the other departments that we're in progress on things similar to that,
Okay.
that you consider going ahead and allowing their payment to Tier 1 for the first 3 quarters.
Then without confusing the court, my recommendation would be that you submit the paperwork on that for the court to pay them, and so we know what the number is.
Sure.
And by that time, they ought to have the CPR training behind them, and that would,
And also with the understanding that if for some reason they don't complete it, they
Right.
don't get the fourth quarter bill.
right. Okay. So if you'll submit that to the court,
Yes, sir.
okay? Is that agreeable with the commissioners?
I'm not exactly clear what you're approving here.
Okay.
So are we paying them the first tier, which is 30,000 annually, right? You divide it by 4.
Yes, sir.
So you're trying to pay them how many quarters
I'm recommending that we consider paying them for the first 3 quarters because
of 20
of this year.
of this year?
Yes, yes, ma'am. And that's based on the fact that everything but the CPR was already, if we had had a contract with them in October, they still would be at this point in October.
But they have not met CPR.
They don't have the full, they're short 2 people to meet the CPR one for tier 1.
So what I'm hearing you say is then we won't make payment until they make CPR requirements.
Well, my thought was by the time he submits the paperwork and it's before another court, since they have it scheduled, it should be resolved.
Okay. But if they don't meet,
Should I, again, that's
Then
what I'm
we'll-
asking the court for what you're.
Then we can hold the invoice until they've qualified.
Until they qualify.
because that's the
Because-
whole object, right?
Right, because since this is a tier 1 obligation, the question is, do we pay them or not pay them? Because if they haven't met the tier 1, then they'd not be
They
entitled.
wouldn't get anything. Yes,
Correct.
sir.
Why don't we, it just seems logical, just, they've got it scheduled right around the corner, just let them get it done and then come back to the court, and
And that's what I was suggesting.
there's no
Yeah.
problem at that time.
Okay,
Instead
I
of-
just wanted to make sure I was hearing correctly, because I wasn't sure what we were doing.
Well, regardless of what I said, that was what I was thinking.
Okay.
So-
But thank you.
So I understand what you're instructing then is you want the payment to be withheld until they complete the CPR portion, correct?
That's the object
Okay.
of it.
And the reason I think that's important, we're just trying to get them to the tier 1 level, where we've
Right.
had some of the others in process, it was to get them from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. So we knew that they were entitled to some monies. At this point, we're not for sure that Plantersville is entitled to any monies.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Is that reasonable, commissioners?
Yes.
Sounds
Right.
reasonable.
Then we will table that until you submit it back for us to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, and depending on how long it takes, rather than having this come up every week, I would suggest, Judge, that, like you said, once I get confirmation from the fire department, from the chief, that item has been completed for tier 1, at that point, I'll get it on the next available commissioners court.
And I think July 22nd is going to be the next Wednesday court, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've got 2 weeks, well, 10 days.
I'll monitor it, I'll let
Okay.
you know, Judge.
Check with the
If
chief.
they're not ready by then, or I think it's gonna come too close, then I'll postpone it until August.
Sounds good. Then with that, if you'll take us to number 11, that's consider and approve the grant application resolution between Grimes County and the Governor's Office regarding the Coronavirus Emergency Supplement Funding, CESF program for fiscal year 2020 and authorize the county judge as signatory. That's our attachment number 11.
Before we get to the resolution, can I ask questions about
Sure.
this particular grant funding, supplemental funding? Can you tell me what the purpose of it is? I mean,
It's a part of the money that's already been sent, a portion of that's been sent to the county that we have in our account, but it has specific criteria for how we can spend it, and I've been working very closely with Mary, with MJ, to determine what's eligible and what's not, so that we can try and make sure that we maximize that money. But to be able to go forward and actually, even though we've received it in advance, we have to complete the formal process with the state as far as, the grant application and so on, which we had submitted a lot of that. But one of the things that they came back, they kicked it back after we had submitted it. We had the deadline of the 15th of June to do that. And they kicked it back for questions and issues with the grant application. One of those was that we didn't have an actual resolution attached with it. So this is more of a formality to follow through with that so we can move forward with that grant.
so is this the same this says Corona Emergency Supplemental Funding Program. Is that
There's
the
two
same
pieces.
as?
Yeah, there's two parts. There's
Okay.
actually, in effect, almost like two separate grants. One is the CSR coronavirus supplementary, I don't remember the acronym meaning, but
Coronavirus
one
emergency
part of it
supplemental.
is much more strict, and we can only use that money within the strict confines of, what that grant is allowed for.
Okay.
Whereas the other part is a larger portion, but we've already figured out how we can spend the bulk of those funds on coronavirus protective measures. But both of them are targeted at that. It has to be things that we did that were related to coronavirus protective measures, such as whatever the cost was for the shields that you have in front of you now. That would be something we would file with that.
Okay.
And Commissioner, as Mr. Liddy has said, because there was a 20% funding up front and 80% being held, and they were anxious, the feds got it to the states were anxious to get the 20% to us so we can go ahead and cover some of our expenses. But this resolution is kind of checking the box down the checklist, and in order for us to be qualified further, and also in the event we're audited and we're not concerned about that everything is in place. So David had prepared this resolution to be in compliance with the grant requirements.
Okay, well, I was just asking because once I looked it up, I knew it was already passed.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's why I was trying to figure out what we're doing, because this had a completely different name from the Corona Relief
Yes, there were,
Fund.
like I said, two separate ones. And
Yeah.
we did have a resolution.
So I
for the
never
other, but not for this
understood
one.
there was two separate ones that
Yes, ma'am.
combined to make that one. So that's what I was trying to understand.
And we were thinking that the one resolution would suffice for both, because they really come out of the same pot of money, but the way the governor's office looks at it, these are two separate and distinct grants, they have separate criteria, so they want two separate resolutions for each.
Okay.
So this,
Okay.
this is different from the expenditure standpoint as opposed to the other grant that you reference has to be spent for medical, personal.
Yes, sir.
What is this money gonna be spent on?
I don't remember the specifics, Mary can answer that better, but basically, any of the protective measures that we've done that don't fit under the criteria of the 20%, we can use, like for instance, I believe the courthouse cleaning did not fall under the more strict one, if I remember right.
No, I believe it did.
It did, okay. Again, I'd have to ask Mary about what specific expenses. She said that she's already has, a lot of information has been sent by the department chiefs and by most of you commissioners and the judge as far as costs that either we've already accrued or that we anticipate accruing that are related to coronavirus protective measures.
Would that not be the 4, 5, and 6 on that list?
That's correct.
Yes,
4,
sir.
5, and 6 is where the 80% is, but we have to, I mean,
20%.
the 20%, but we have to on 1, 2, and 3, which is more to health and prevention and things of that
Health,
sort.
medical, and payroll.
Yeah.
Or
So,
law enforcement,
those are the
I
1,
believe
2,
law
3s.
enforcement related too.
Health, medical, and payroll are the bullets, and then,
Right.
I mean, the points fall under it. But I think what he was at, this is basically the same grant, and she made,
Dave, was the magistrate coming out of this one for the JPs?
Out of one of them. I think it's coming out of the.
This one that I believe, she has a list of expenditures and, we can definitely get that for you, Commissioner Cox. But I believe out of this one, I saw the magistrate, the JP.
Yeah, and when I think now, yes, the magistrate, video magistrate equipment was included in this one. The courthouse cleaning was included on this one. The dispensers that we have at the courthouse, anything related to court proceedings or law enforcement, that's part of the strict criteria for that, whereas other measures that we've done in some of the other buildings wouldn't fall under that one. This is the smaller amount, but it was much more strict.
and this is from the Bureau of Justice.
Yes.
This particular funding,
Yes, ma'am.
but it falls under that same Corona Relief Fund.
Under the governor's.
But this lays out how those 80% of that money can be spent specifically in certain areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And we actually broke down, on the application, we actually broke it down specifically what the amounts were for this particular one that we submitted the application for, so. And the video magistrate was part of that, and it included 4 software programs, a signature pad, 4 video cameras. I don't remember what else was in there. That was the largest piece, with the exception of the courthouse cleaning cost, and I think that came out to about $7,200 for the video magistrate system.
Are we using any of this money for like hazard pays or salaries?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. And what about,
Unless it's where we're having a contractor come in, like we were doing cleaning over at the jail administration offices, then those monies can be submitted on this. That would be a salary, but it's a contract salary.
okay,
There is one outline item on there for this one that does relate to salary, and it was for the one jailer that had to fill in for the other jailer early on when he tested positive for COVID and had to do the 2-week quarantine.
It was an overtime.
Had to pull extra hours. It came out, I think it came out to about $540. We did put that on there too, under personnel. So, and again, we had to be very detailed on the cost on those two.
I know it's after the fact, but commissioners, if you attend the workshop next Monday, you're certainly going to have a better understanding of categories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and what applies and what doesn't apply. I'm saying that's after the fact, but again, ask Mr. Lilly to get this resolution prepared so we could get this submitted and be done with this portion to help the county qualify for those funds.
but I think that it was confusing to me because we never saw this portion of it. We just saw the first paperwork about the corona relief,
Okay?
but we never saw this emergency supplemental funding program.
Right.
We never saw that, so it can be confusing that we're using a combination of money in one pot that we're pulling from, but they have to meet certain criteria on both
Yep.
grants. Okay.
So is the amount of money that's allotted for this grant included in the 80%?
Yes.
Say again, I'm sorry. Do what?
The amount of money that's allotted for this emergency supplemental funding program, is that included in the 80% that has to be expended before we can go on and to 4, 5, and 6?
These are 2 separate. For the
So-
one that y'all had a meeting on with MJ, that is the CRF.
Yeah, that's what I keep
Corona
asking.
Relief Fund. This is a separate grant.
So this doesn't have, 80% doesn't even play in the picture with this?
I don't believe so. I will double check with her, but I don't believe so.
So what amount of money is this? Does anybody know?
It's on the CJD.
I think we had to make a minimum or meet a minimum amount of 10,000 to be eligible for this portion. And our actual cost, I want to say, came out to about $12,000. So we met the minimum, but I think the maximum on this was 20,000.
So is
I
that
believe that was the
12?
highest we could go on this portion, and we had to at least get 10,000 or validate 10,000 as a minimum that met the criteria for this grant, and we did. Like I said, we got to about 12,000.
Is that 12,000 included in the 80% of the CRF grant or funding?
No, sir.
So it's total, that, we can't use that as part of the 80% out of
No.
that?
No, I see what you're saying. No, this is, we had to meet the eligibility, we had to spend this portion to become eligible for the 80%. They tied them together, but it's not, we can't use expenses on this grant towards the other one. You know, we have, you know, it's like an either or thing. Now, if we have additional costs that we find that would, let's say, fall under this one that would have been eligible, but we didn't incur them yet by the time we submitted this application, I believe they're still eligible for the other one.
Right.
Because they're more general for the coronavirus measures. You know, it's not, this one was very specific. It had to be law enforcement or court-related costs only. So
So how much is the total of this?
I don't have the exact number, sir, but I can get that for you. Like I said, I want to say it was around 12,000.
That's all we got, or that's all we spent?
That's all we can verify that we've spent that meet this criteria for this grant.
But it doesn't say how much was funded.
Up to 20,000.
Up
That's
to
what we were
20.
allowed to spend. We had to make a minimum of 10, and it was up to 20,000 max that we could use for this grant. And we fell in between that. Again, it was around $12,000 that we actually spent.
So how we met the period in which it can be spent, or if it's up to 20,000, and you say we've only spent 12, what about the remaining 8?
I don't know if that's still open where we can still apply for that or not.
I believe it's set. They've applied for, they said Grimes County, you're eligible for $20,000. They had to submit, this is what we're gonna spend it on, or this is what we've spent it on, and they've only submitted the 12. And that's how y'all wrote the grant out. Did you write the grant out that way?
Yes.
So then no, they will not be able to go in. All they could come up with at the time was the 12. And that's how the grant was written. So at that point, the 20 is no longer in play.
So this deadline has occurred, and
So they submitted the grant application already, and it's for what the expenses we've incurred.
Yeah, and the deadline was the 15th of June, that we had to submit the application, and we did that, we met that deadline.
But we don't get to take this 12 off the 80% of the.
They are two separate grants. You can't apply both of them together, they're two separate.
I guess that's what was confusing me, that it was over with.
Well, they're
We were
both
just applying,
coronavirus
so.
related, they're both, I mean, it's crazy how they're doing it, but it's two separate grants. So your CESF, that's the one we're discussing today, and then you have the CRF, the one y'all been having the meetings on in regards to the spending and the criteria. It's a little more restrictive kind of with the categories. You got to do this first before you can get to this money down here. So yes, they're two separate, and you cannot apply one to the other.
Okay, so no more expenses can be applied to this particular grant?
No, not if the application was already submitted and been awarded.
Okay, all right.
There are no further comments. I move we approve the application. Resolution between Grimes County and the Governor's Office regarding the Corona Emergency Supplement Funding Program for the fiscal year 2020 and authorize the county judge as signatory.
Second. There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 11 by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lilly, if you would give us a quick update on the COVID-19 report, agenda item number 12.
Yes, sir. To date, we are now at 157 cases total since we started counting, and since DSHS started reporting confirmed cases to us. 77 of those are in the city of Navasota, so we're close to just over half of our total cases in the city. None of the other cities have had any cases within their city limits, so none of the other mayors have had to be brought in on this, but I do keep them advised on where we are. And I've been advised also that there are some possible cases that'll show up later, but again, I don't add those to our list until we get it confirmed by the Department of State Health Services. And we are now currently, initially I was doing a daily release. I would put it out on Facebook, and we are also eventually doing press releases in conjunction with the city of Navasota. But in light of, the information we're putting out is basically just numbers. Jason, Chief Piekowski and I agreed, let's just push this back. Now we do it once a week, and we normally do it on Mondays, but yesterday it went out on Tuesday instead of Monday because his PR person was not available. She was out on Monday. But normally on Mondays we do the press release, and like I said, we're seeing a pretty significant jump in the last 2 weeks. Most of those, it's doubled basically from 2 weeks ago.
Do you know how many we have recovered from the 157?
Currently, our official number from DSHS is 33. Now, we're certain that there's more than that have recovered, but again, we're only reporting what's officially provided to us by DSHS. They're working diligently to try and get caught up on a lot of that, but they are short-staffed. They're hurting for people too, and they're getting 300 to 400 new cases every day from the 24 counties, so it's all they can do to keep up with the new ones coming in. But I do anticipate that we will get more recovered cases reported to us, and also they use another term which is called loss to follow-up. Those, once they reach the 30-day point after they go on the list as lost to follow-up or LTF, then they're no longer considered an active case. They may not be listed as recovered, but they're no longer tracked. And right now, we're, I believe, at 18 lost to follow-up also. So we kind of look at those two as likely recovered. So we also look at how many are actually active. And right now, we're at, out of the 157, we're 97 active. So that kind of gives you a better idea of where we are. It's not as dire as it may look. You know, when you see 157 cases, that looks like a lot of people, and it is. But you know, we look more at the active number of cases too.
Sure.
And
correct me if I'm wrong. We've only had one death, but
yes,
that was originally out of with the PAC unit, right?
Yes, sir.
So as far as within Grimes County, excluding the 2 prison units, we've not had a death to date.
No, sir. No fatalities in the county at large. Also, as far as PPE, we've been working very hard with the long-term care facilities to make sure that they have the supplies that they need. Currently, all of our facilities are in good shape. Early on, we did have 2 cases at one of the facilities, but they've since recovered, and they have no new cases at this time. But I am responding to their request for any PPE. In fact, I'm going to be delivering some gowns to the Navasota Rehab Center later this week. And again, they don't need them now. If they have any active cases that develop within that facility, then they would need to actually start wearing gowns as part of their protocol. So, you know, I want to make sure they have what they need in case that happens. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if the Department of Health does contact tracing once they've notified a person that they have been infected? Do they trace the people that they've come in contact with?
Yes, that's a part of the follow-up. Once the initial case is reported to us, then they go back and they reach out to the individual and find out who they were in contact with and so on. But again, we have not gotten any information related to contact tracing on any of our cases since around the 12th of June. So they're really behind on that. And they acknowledge, again, that's something, like for instance, the one piece of data we really need to know is how many of those folks are hospitalized or were reported as hospitalized. Right now, we only know of one for sure that DSHS has confirmed to us, and that was early on, back in early June. So again, that contact tracing is critical to it, but that's where, that's more labor intensive part of what they have to do, and they just don't have enough people to get it all done for the 24 counties at this time. So we're a little behind on that.
Do you know the status of the hospital bed space in Grimes County or surrounding counties? Do you know what the hospital are looking like right now?
From what I reached out to Erin, who is the hospital administrator. I talked to her last Thursday, and she said they're good. They're not, I think they're about 80% hospital availability, so about 20% capacity right now of patients. And not all of those are COVID related either. In most cases, if it's a COVID related patient, then they'll have them there temporarily, but they don't have the ability, like they don't have an ICU. So they have to, if there's any need for that patient to have further care or more intensive care, they're routinely transferred up to Bryan College Station to one of the larger hospitals. In their case, it'd be to St. Joseph and Bryan, but I do know that sometimes, depending on availability, they might also laterally transfer more to Baylor Scott and White. There's a very close partnership between the 2 hospital systems.
So I know I think it was yesterday, the governor put out a plan about reopening schools and some of the criteria. Will you be assisting any of the schools with obtaining PPE or anything like that, or is that solely on them?
To my knowledge, the schools are receiving the PPE that they need through their own supply channels. But again, I am going to be reaching out to the ISD directors to find out what their needs are. And if there's any shortfalls, then I'll go ahead and put requests into the state to, like I have for the long-term care facilities, to get whatever they need. So,
And can I chime in on that?
Yes,
I know that Erin Mariota, the administrator at the hospital, has reached out to David Lilly and myself and to one of the city councilmen to start a bi-weekly update. And we've reached out to the schools also to try to keep everybody on the same page, communication going forth, so everybody will know what's happening with everyone in the community. So we are currently in the process of setting up those meetings, and we'll bring it back to Commissioners Court as we strategically plan to do more communication with one another.
And these are going to be Zoom meetings, or well, whatever version that they use. There's different versions of video meeting capabilities, but it'll be a video type meeting where people that, hopefully we can encourage more participation, where more people can actually get involved in the meeting.
And we'll know bed capacity, we'll know what the schools are doing, we'll know what the community as a whole is in need of, and how we can help assist the entire county.
Also, I'd like to report to you on testing capability. I've been working with Ponch Gonzalez, our district coordinator, to try and get more of the, like some of the counties have been doing the walk-up free testing. We're working to try and get that here, but they've actually kind of pulled back. I thought we had it actually, like we were going to get at least one, if not two of those for next week, but the governor has ordered them to basically reshuffle. He wants to, a lot of that testing has been done, like the mobile testing we had done earlier back in April. It's being done by the National Guard, and the governor has asked that Kedem step in and bring in teams to replace them so they can free up the National Guard to let them basically, you know, they've been doing this nonstop for 3 months now. It's almost like a deployment. So because of that, he said probably the earliest we'll be able to get a walk-up testing set up, and I'm looking to try and get one in Navasota and then one in another location in the county, and possibly do it. He's asked that we consider doing it for 2 or 3 days in a row at the same location where people can have plenty of time to come out and get tested. And we're looking at the first week of August right now is what we're shooting for.
And they did have testing yesterday and today in Brazos County if anyone needed
Yes.
testing. So.
But the key with that is, and it's probably going to be the same with ours, again, ours is designed for walk-up, but they reverted with the Brazos County one that was supposed to be walk-up, but they reverted to appointment only because they got overwhelmed. So they asked people to call in and get an appointment, and so they basically ran out of slots. So I anticipate that may be the same case with ours, but I'm going to be tracking it very closely, and again, I'll keep you advised as to what course we need to take, because my goal is, number one, to make it as easy as possible for our citizens, and also make it free, so they don't have to worry about paying a fee to get a test. Okay. One last thing, I received 10,000 surgical masks, which is like what you and I are wearing, Commissioner. Received 10,000 of those from Chelsea, who is with the Hot Rack, Heart in Texas Regional Advisory Council, and these are for businesses and nonprofits. I've already reached out to Johnny McNally. I asked him if he would survey the chamber members to see how many businesses would like masks, because I'm not just going to walk up and hand them out. I don't want, you know, some businesses have already taken it on their own to get masks, and they may not need them, but I want to make these available to all the businesses and nonprofits and churches across the county. I did get his email back yesterday, so I'm going to start going through there and seeing, basically it was a yes or no, do you need masks, and if so, how many? And I'm going to start going through that, and then we'll get those distributed. It's going to take a little time, but the goal is to get these to these businesses and nonprofits as quickly as possible so they can make sure that they're complying with the governor's order, but also make it possible for their patrons to do so too.
And you're making sure our first responders are covered
Yes,
in
sir.
the process?
Yes, sir. In fact, I have a steady supply that I've been able to receive, and in some cases even maintain a supply on hand to respond to any needs from our first responders.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have 2 comments I'd like to make on that.
I'll ask you to speak up, sir.
I think on TEA is going to be responsible for the PPE for the public schools.
Okay.
I think I heard that on the news this morning. The other comment I have is Gulf Coast blood drives are testing all of the blood for that they take for the immunity, or if you've had it. And a lot of the doctors do not know that. I visited with the doctor last week, and he said they weren't aware of that. They are not allowed to give that test through Scott and White. He told me that. They're not doing it at the hospitals. So that's one way that you can go and get tested. If you think you've had the virus and you have the antibodies, then if you go give blood, they will test that and let you know. And they do not have the results back from the blood that we gave last week. I called yesterday. They said it was going to be a few more days because they do have a backlog on getting those tested, but they will test that.
That's a positive.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, that's all I have for today.
Thank you very much, and appreciate your energy and effort.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Little.
We're gonna get back on schedule, go back to agenda item number 6, Grimes County Building, number 5, Grimes County Commissioner Precinct 2, David Dobianski, consider and recognize Charles Finn for 15 years of service. I understand Mr. Finn is not available. Mr. Walker, are you out there?
Mr. Walker, here. On delay.
Is that French or bad Spanish? You're here to accept.
Charlie's not gonna be here.
Yeah, and they told me that you were going to accept. This is the plaque that you get him. And, I'll put it back in.
Tell Mr. Finn, thank you.
Which,
They're paid.
does he work at? I'll, stop. You want me to go out and present it to him out there? I can do that.
That would be great.
Okay.
That would be good.
I'll call Patrick and get that set up.
Commissioner, if you would, get somebody to snap a shot, and we could get it sent to the paper.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item number 6, Grimes County Building Maintenance Manager Al Peeler, update on the ongoing projects, Grimes County Courthouse, Grimes County Jail, and Grimes County Justice Center. Good morning, Mr. Peeler.
Morning. Grimes County Courthouse update. We had our punch list yesterday.
Some might not know what the punch list is, so
Okay. Punch list is when we go over it after everything they say is done. Then I go over it, the engineer goes over it, and we blue tape everything. They got hit pretty hard on some areas, light on other areas. We're looking at possibly taking the scaffolding down the week of the 27th, 21st, 27th, somewhere in there. They still have a lot of work to do on our glass doors. I come back and I hit them pretty hard on the glass doors. I want them to be perfect in every way, so, and they weren't, so. Then we will turn our sights into the interior, which that will be a 3 to 4 month process, depending on how much plaster, how far we gotta tear stuff apart to get to water holding. Right now, we are watertight. Right now, we are humidity tight. The way I can tell that is the control system has immediately went from about 60% when they had the doors and the cupola all tore off to now we hold about 48% humidity. So, and it is only going to get better when they start sealing up the doors. We have some areas that I'm not happy with. Besides that, we're getting ready to wrap that project up and start an inside project.
excellent.
The doors look good.
Doors look good. My Facebook blew up Saturday, and I had no clue, and I went to it, and there was 176 messages telling us how good them doors look. So, something to be proud of. Any other questions about the courthouse? Moving right along to the Justice Center. Is that the next one?
Jail is next.
Jail, okay, jail. So the jail, we picked up some problems, we've adjusted some problems. We had some mold issues come back to the areas that we cleaned, but not to the grandeur of how it was. The problem was that building has humidity problems totally far exceeds what we had in the courthouse. So we adjusted some things about keeping doors open that lets all the humidity in. That's helped a little. We've now, I've talked to Chief Deputy Green, and they're gonna let the control system, people come in and do their job, that will help us control the humidity. Will it control all of it? No, because we still have some fire suppression things that I just acquired the knowledge of. It's gonna have to be readjusted, so some of that's gonna be in October. But I think the control system's coming in, we've ordered, we have an engineered plan. We have ordered the parts that we need to combat the humidity control. That's gonna be an ongoing process. I want the court to know that. Just because I'm putting a control system in, it's gonna help the mold, okay? It will help eliminate that. But there's gonna be some process that I'm gonna have to redesign how some of the duct runs and some of the fire suppression and how it's controlled. Right now, they can just turn the flush fans on and flush everything, but then they turn it off and the flappers don't shut. Well, when the flappers don't shut, you're feeding outside air right into my controlled system. So you're gonna hear me talk about that a lot in my reports, because that's just as much a problem as the sewer system is. We'll get it. I don't have a fear about that. It's just gonna take me some time, and you guys get tired of hearing about HVAC controls and sewer lines, and
Well, as soon as you fix it, we won't have to hear about it anymore.
that's absolutely. But Rome wasn't built in a day. So we're doing good there. We cannot send in mold remediation because of the jail standards and how many people that are coming in, because we have to shut down a section of the jail and do that. And right now they're not capable of doing that. I think that's it on the jail, unless you guys got some questions.
Justice Center?
Justice Center. Well, I'm ready. Plans are, and the commissioners, these two sat on the meeting yesterday. Plans are, we're gonna pour the other half of the slab Friday or Saturday. We didn't have a weather pattern for yesterday. I haven't been over there this morning, but I don't believe we got enough rain that it was gonna hinder our pouring on Friday or Saturday. I don't believe that. I don't know how much we got here in Anderson, but it wasn't enough to make it that bad. I know we got some, but, so our plans are to pour on Friday or Saturday. And then after that, we can start, we have a cure time on the front half of 14 days, is that right? But we can start erecting steel on the back half. So, that was a back and forth yesterday on, well. So that's just a small report because of the weather delays. And
How many rain delays are we counting now?
50.
How many?
50.
They are working over there this morning. I drove by.
Yeah, I imagine they're working, because they're trying to get them carton forms, because we got a pattern right now that we're just gonna turn off hot. Now, I wouldn't want to be there pouring concrete, but that's the job they picked, I guess. So, for the most part, I think we're still, once we get out of the main structure pad, the slab, we can go a lot faster after we get past the curing time of the concrete. Then we can just rip, roar, and go, because it doesn't matter. You can hang steel in the rain.
The rain won't be as critical at that point.
Absolutely.
Maybe lightning, but not rain.
Absolutely. So, that's about it for the Justice Center, unless there's some questions. Oh, I do have one. So, I have a question for you guys. How the documentation needed for the drive, where do we stand? Do we know?
The county attorney, myself, and the citizen are still working on that.
Okay. Sooner the better. Because they're really wanting to get pushing that way. So they have, when they pour, they're gonna pour both driveways.
Okay.
other questions?
Say that again.
So,
As soon as they what?
sooner the better for us, so we can get it drawn up, planned, and get everything, what we can do dirt work on, so they're gonna work on both driveways or roads as soon as they get that other, they're hoping that you get the paperwork done so they can get it all drawn up. And then when they start on this driveway, the 149 driveway, they can just move their crew to that one.
Well, one of the concerns that the current landowner had was, at what point would we be finishing that other drive? Because he was, that was part of the language in the contract. And so if we know that that's going to be occurring in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
We're waiting on you.
Okay.
As soon as you get me the hard go,
Tell you what,
I
I'll
can.
take care of this, you take care of the jail.
Yeah.
I have nothing else, do you?
Hey, no. We're waiting on your paperwork,
I understand.
and as soon as you get that, I can get it drawn up, and I can give you an actual date of when it's gonna start and finish.
Got it.
But I can't I can't tell you an end date.
I understand.
Did I miss something?
No?
You're good.
Okay. How do we get back to the jail? No,
I was just messing with you. I said, I'll take care of this, the paperwork,
oh,
and you take care of the jail.
yeah, I'm thinking, I was talking driveways.
All right.
Yeah, because they keep asking me and I keep referring it off to them. Because they're waiting to get the drawings and get in there, correct?
But I guess we need the land in order to go in and do the survey, in order to do.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
But we could, from today, we could effectively have that drive poured in 60 days easily.
Well, no.
No.
90 days.
No. Because
90 days.
No.
You're not-
180 days.
I'll tell you, we can have it done by the building's done.
Yeah.
Because we still have to get in there, do soil testing, we still gotta get in there and, draw it up, and we still gotta do, if it needs fill work.
John C., are you in the hall?
Yes, sir.
Can you step in, at least listen in the doorway? Okay.
Yes, sir, I was listening.
Oh, you were listening?
I was.
So you heard our conversation?
I think so.
Okay. Never mind then.
Well, I'll stay here.
So we will get that drive done by the time the building's done, but probably sooner than that, or not?
Well, I would say it would be sooner, but I won't commit to that because, we still
The
have.
contractor needs to schedule his crews and which order they.
Yeah.
But didn't y'all just say that once we had the paperwork done, then y'all could move through the process because they're gonna move on to that next?
I said we can move on to the process.
They want to schedule, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's going to take 60 to 90 days for the design.
Right. I can guarantee you it'll be done when the building's done.
What is
But-
the deadline that's in the agreement with the
I
landowner?
think it's March the 30th, or with a month after that, and now 50 days on top of that, so April, May, we're probably looking around June,
Well, again, that 50 days is only
if they need it.
if they need it. So, maybe I'm not a lawyer, but maybe we can say when
We've got
the
one.
Justice Center is complete, the road will be complete in the contract.
I'm guessing that what's on the agenda is sufficient for us to have this conversation, but I don't want to go too far.
Well, it is because it's update on the Justice Center, and this is a part of the Justice Center, sir.
Sure, the question is that the response from Mr. Westmoreland is he wants the road to be completed within 12 months. The last meeting we had on this issue, Commissioner Mallett said, let's not put completed, let's put begin construction. You don't know what's going to happen. The penalty for failing to complete it within 1 year is that the property reverts back to Mr. Westmoreland. You guys as fiduciaries cannot say there's a possibility you're going to risk hundreds of thousands of dollars of construction on this thing. If the last nail, the last yard of concrete or whatever is not done, and let's say there's a fact issue, somebody's fighting, that's done, no, that's not done, and what, you lose the property and you lose all of the work that's been done on the road? I just don't know that you can do that. So we're gonna have to come up with some language, but that's where we are at this moment.
Right, so I'm comfortable with saying when the Justice Center's completed, which we have a 365-day contract, but we also have 50 days of rain days that they could truly go, hey, we want our 50 days.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would like to see the language in there that says when the Justice Center is complete, that road will be complete. I don't have a problem with that. Commissioner Mellon, Cox, do you have a problem with that? Not the way they keep wanting to know about that land. I think they're anxious to get in there because they have some stuff. We're crossing an easement for one. So they'll have to work that out and see what the plans are on that.
Well, I think, yes, it's on the radar, no doubt about it, because they bring it up regularly, and we do have that
Right.
talk in the meetings, but at the same time, we need to make sure that, as the county attorney has pointed out, that we are diligent with what we're doing, and make sure that there's not.
Yeah, because they need to know how to schedule their crews. I mean, they've got different crews for doing the dirt work, and I mean, they just need to kind of have an idea of what that timeline will be. So
Right.
they don't want to bring them out and then have to leave and then come and bring them back. You know, that deal is not going to work.
But John and I, working with Mr. Westmoreland, we have to have an idea. Doesn't have to be absolute at the moment, but I mean, we have to know what we can present back to him so we can get his agreement to move forward, so that we can get the paper signed, so that then you can move forward on the project with the contractor.
I would say it will be completed when the Justice Center is complete.
John, do you think that's satisfactory?
Maybe if we have the same rain days built into that agreement as are built into the contract, then probably, but I mean, I just don't want to run a risk, and I don't remember what the construction costs were, $400,000. I don't want to put in $300,000 and something comes up, let's say a pandemic, and you can't get it done, and we can put a force majeure provision in there, but something comes up, it can't be completed. Mr. Westmoreland says, oh, it's not done, and we end up in litigation over whether it's done or not done and whether it reverts back. I don't
That's why I
want
like
to let you do
to
that. I
start
don't
it.
want to let you do that.
Just put a start into it within a year and it'll be fine.
Well,
But he didn't like that.
I thought beginning, I'm pretty sure that we can work with Mr. Westmoreland to get there. It's just a matter of you, Commissioner Mallett, specifically requested that change in the language to say begin construction, I think it was, as opposed to complete construction. Mr. Westmoreland has pushed back specifically on that language and said, I'm not in agreement with that. So I think we can get there. We may have a penalty of, if it's not completed by then, certain amount of dollar, liquidated damages like we have in the other contract, but we can't lose the people's $300,000 in construction. So I think we can get there. It just, if you think that, Al, if you think that road will be, better said, I want you to be super confident that that road is gonna be completed at the same time as the project. And if we can put in there that the liquidated damages provision applies to the road, then I guess we can get there. I just, I don't wanna put you guys in a place where there's any chance that you're risking the people's $400,000.
I agree. I'm super confident that road will be done at the same time the Justice Center is.
And I'm pretty sure we could probably get, if we wanted to set a solid date, I'm pretty sure the contractor would, if we can hurry up and because we've got to do so much prep beforehand. The longer it takes to get the paperwork signed, the longer it's going to be to put an actual date on there.
Bingo.
And I'll call Mr. Gate, which is the project manager.
But we can say a year after the contract is signed, maybe, and then we can make sure the
Yeah.
contractor hits that and we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that. I'm good with that too. I just need the paperwork, that's all. So I can get them going.
John, do you have enough information to help?
You bet, I have more than enough.
Thank you.
I can call Mr. Gaines and say, look,
That's fine. Just-
I can, confirm that, get it
Just,
solid.
if you don't mind, make that a priority for them, but nobody's gonna wanna modify that contract, I suspect. And so we're probably not putting in writing that they have an obligation to do something. I just want the risk to be about that big, that this road is gonna be sacrificed.
So that road will be a change order. So we can put anything in that change
Yeah,
order,
the completion date on that.
completion date in a change order and be done with
We'll
it.
do that, find out what day they're willing to put in there.
Okay,
Please.
I will do that today.
Problem is, if they don't finish it, all we get is liquidated damages from them, and we'll give up $400,000 for that.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, okay, well, we'll make it work, Judge, we can make it work. I suspect that Mr. Westmoreland is willing to talk through why it is this court can't do that, blanket hard date and say, we lose it all. On the other hand, I get his perspective. He doesn't want a bunch of bluster, oh yeah, we're gonna do it, and then you guys hang him out to dry for 2 or 3 years and never complete the road. So I get that. I think we can get there. It just was a matter of, his statement was, I'm not okay with the language that you guys last proposed.
Well, if you'll help me get language that he'll be happy with, we can put this to bed. You guys can then move forward on it with the contractor.
That'd be fun.
Thank you.
Now, if you'll let me know what Brad says,
I will,
please.
I will. Any other questions about the Justice Center?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Check my email.
I did, thank you.
Grimes County Human Resources Director Talita Coleman, agenda item number 7, review, discuss, and take action on implementing a COVID-19 policy and procedure manual for Grimes County. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners, how are y'all?
Good.
Morning.
So, obviously, the coronavirus is not going away. I know there was meetings prior to me taking over HR on how the county was gonna run and do things as far as their employees. But I think it's time for the court to really consider putting together a committee to draft the policy and procedures manual for a couple of reasons. One, we need consistency with our elected officials and department heads. Everybody is just kind of going on the whim here, and we need to be consistent throughout the county, not just within each department, but within each department. Another reason is you guys had mentioned about getting COVID relief funds or grant money. I talked to MJ and she said, we're gonna need a policy for that anyways. And then also for insurance purposes. You know, if we get if we don't have any type of protocol or something for our employees to follow, a guideline to help be proactive with the coronavirus, it could cause our medical insurance to go up because of people having to seek treatment. You know, if we get a couple employees that have to do the extensive hospital stay that some people have to do with this virus, that could be a direct reflection on our insurance premiums next year. So what I'm asking is the court's permission to allow me to put together a committee based on with employees in various departments of the county, and let us work on putting something together for you guys to review. I've reached out to several different counties. They really don't have any policies and procedures manuals, but they have court orders that they have in place. And so there's a lot of good information there that we can kind of piggyback off of. I don't foresee it taking too terribly of an amount of time to put it together.
And this would go on our regular policies and procedures manual?
It could be an amendment to what we have.
Okay. And the protocols that we now have?
That's the protocols that were sent out last Thursday, just to give them some guidelines. Obviously, those would be implemented into the policy as well.
I think it's
How big of a committee are you recommending, and where would you accumulate those folks from?
So I'm looking to grab somebody from the sheriff's office because they're a big department, a road and bridge employee. I've talked with John C. about possibly Tori sitting in with us since we're going to need legal advice anyways. Myself and then one member of the Commissioners Court, which Commissioner Cox has agreed to sit on that.
So Road and Bridge, Sheriff's Office, and who?
Road and Bridge, Sheriff's Office, Lori
For legal,
for legal, myself, and then Commissioner Cox.
for the court.
Okay,
That
so
doesn't
what
mean
about
that I'm
the,
not gonna go in and
Okay.
ask the other elected officials. I've already started reaching out to some of the elected officials and other department heads, asking them what they would like to see.
Mhm.
But I'm just trying to keep the committee kind of small, so
Okay.
we can take all of those ideas and get it done fairly quickly.
I think it's a great idea.
I totally agree. I'll make the motion that we give Ms. Coleman the authority to put together a committee and at least try to get the 5 departments that she's stated here: Sheriff's Office, Road and Bridge, Legal, HR, and the Commissioner's Court representative being Commissioner Cox, and put together a COVID-19 policy and procedure for Grimes County to follow for an extended period of time.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 7 by County Judge Joe Fowl, seconded by Commissioner Walker. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck on that.
Thank you.
That's important. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, Road and Bridge Engineer Harry Walker. Item number 8, consideration and possible approval of a variance request to the minimum lot size criteria for Lake Holly Hill subdivision, block 11, lots 3 and 4. See attachment number 8. Good morning for your second time around.
Good morning, everyone. A property owner in Lake Holly Hill has applied for variance. If you look at the sketch that was included in your packet, he owns lots 3 and 4, has for a number of years, and has built a 40 by 60 foot building on lot 4, across the property line, a short distance, up in lot 3. Since that building was built, he decided he wants to sell lot 4 to his daughter. Unfortunately, he wants to retain the building that he's put in and is asking if we would grant a variance to allow him to sell an undersized lot. If the variance is granted, then he would have to also go through the replat process. We met with and talked to him and explained that if the lot configuration that he had would comply with the TCQ requirements for spacing on well and septic in both lots, then we could consider a variance. They have done that. They've presented the design. It's been reviewed by the environmental department that lays out well and septic for lot 4 and for lot 3 that both comply with the TCQ requirements. One other issue in consideration, lot 4 as it currently exists, as originally platted, did not meet our lot size criteria. Lake Holly Hill was platted many years ago, and I don't think those criteria had been adopted at that time. But it would not comply with our current criteria, which for well and septic, we require 2 acres. However, the purpose of the lot size requirement is primarily based on being able to meet TCQ's requirements for separation between the well and septic system. They've shown that they can do that. It definitely works a hardship on the property owner if he can't sell that lot without selling the building he's already put on it also. So we're recommending that this variance be approved. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Whose precinct is this in?
It's my precinct.
Yours?
Precinct 2.
Your thoughts, Commissioner?
I don't have any issues with accepting the variance.
Well, with that placement of that future water well, is there any impact on a sewer that's in lot 5? Do they look at that?
No, the criteria don't require them to assess the adjacent properties. It has to be self-contained. Just looking at it, lot 5, lot 6, the other lots along that row are also gonna be the 1.84 acres, plus or minus. They'll be slightly under our criteria.
Yeah.
But that adds their display.
That's a very, very old subdivision down there, it's been there for.
Well, if that water well had to move, because it's future, so in order to drill it, you have to make sure you're not within that buffer of a septic system itself, correct? So if lot 5 had a septic close to that property line.
I believe that's correct.
Would that change how, I guess it could probably move, I don't know which direction we're looking at. Yeah, probably can move west and still be within what it needs to be within.
Yes, it
Still
appears to me that the
maintain
well
that.
location can be shifted to the west across that lot without affecting anything.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of that 2 acres was previously also because of the conventional systems versus the new aerobic systems.
Right.
Yeah.
So you needed more acreage in order to have that buffer.
Yeah. If there are no further questions, I move that we approve variance request to the minimum lot size criteria for Lake Holly Hill subdivision block 11, lots 3 and 4.
Second.
There is a motion before the court on agenda item number 8 by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 9, consideration and possible approval of changes to the subdivision rules, Chapter 4, Security and Fee Schedule. See attachment number 9.
In one of our recent meetings, it was discussed that the current fee schedule for replats was not covering the cost of the advertising we have to do by a substantial amount. At y'all's request, I proposed a new fee schedule. Also took the opportunity to update some of the other platting fees. These fees have been the same since the current subdivision ordinance rules were adopted in 2011, so they're a little outdated. The main issue, the variance request, currently the fee is $50. We have to publish the variance, pardon me, not the variance, the replatting fee has to be published 3 times, and it costs us basically $100 per ad. And again, the replat is also only a $50 fee. So we're recommending that the fees all be increased as shown. Also discussed the water and sewer service facilities, security fees with Catherine Lee, and quite frankly, nobody knew the basis of those fees, and we agreed to make a recommendation that those fees be deleted from the fee schedule entirely.
Have we not been collecting those fees? I don't
I
presume
don't
we
think
have.
we've collected any $10,000
Yeah.
for an aerobic system like so. And Catherine wasn't even sure what the basis of those numbers was. It's just been in there for many years. And nobody seems to know the history of it.
Just curious. Those amounts are somewhat, I would say, prohibitive too.
That's how much they cost.
It's humongous.
What you proposed on the preliminary and final plat fees, the increase From 150 to 2, 250 to 3, 350 to 4, 455.
Right.
Will that cover all of our costs, energy and effort?
It's reasonable. Again, we don't have, because of recent changes in the ruling, we're only having final plats. We're not doing preliminary anymore.
Right.
We're really talking just our review time, which, again, because of the recent changes, we're having to accelerate the review time, so it's a little bit more cost efficient. So I think these will be adequate. I would request on the proposed fee schedule, I don't know exactly what happened, but it says variance request $50 per request. I think our replat fee got cut off somehow. I'm requesting that we change the document in front of you to reflect variance and replats at $350.
Do we need to, 1, 2, 3, where it says preliminary final plat fee, do we need to eliminate preliminary and?
We can.
I mean, since the legislature did away with that.
It is my intention to have a more comprehensive package of subdivision rule revisions for you in the near future. But again, because of the financial implication of this, we want to bring it to you quickly. We don't necessarily need to clean everything up
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
But it certainly wouldn't hurt to strike the preliminary and final and just say plat fees based on acreage.
Is that your recommendation then on this document in front of us?
Yes, sir.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the changes to the subdivision rules, Chapter 5, security and schedule fees as discussed.
There's a motion before the court on item number 9 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Cox. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Road and Bridge report. Any highlights you'd like to share with us, Mr. Walker?
We should be finishing the first round of chip sealing for the projects we planned tomorrow. They're doing 173 today, and they will move over St. John's. It should have that finished tomorrow. And then here in a couple weeks, we'll be ready to start on the second course. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Did you mention about the Tech Dot grant? Did you mention that earlier? No. The judge's office provided me a letter from Tech Dot this morning before the meeting. Our CTIF grant application, which is the one for the oil field roads, was approved, and we've been awarded $197,000 to apply to work improvements on our oil field roads. $197,000, $11.
I was going to let you carry the torch on that.
Is it all field roads only?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They changed the program this
That's what I
year.
thought it was.
You can use the money on any of your road projects, but in our application, what we requested was specifically for the oil field roads. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse
That-
me, George.
Sure. That'll bring us to agenda item number 13, consider and take action regarding the burn ban and authorize the county judge's signatory. A lot of the county got between 1 and 2.5 inches. Chief, I'll impose on you. Would you recommend a burn ban, or would you recommend as is?
Right now, I would recommend maintaining the current status. We've had two high-pressure systems merge, and we're gonna be in a high-pressure area for at least the end of this week. I don't see any reason to take action at this time.
Thank you, sir. Is that an agreement amongst the court? No action? No action on the burn ban. Agenda item number 14. Are there any updates on the strategic plan, commissioners? Hearing none, we'll go to agenda item 15. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 15 by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Mallett. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's a 4-0 vote. Commissioners, if you would stand by for just a minute after we adjourn. Cherie has a document for you to sign. Have you already done that?
It's done.
Never mind.
She's on the ball this morning.
She is.
Can I be here?